Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Most business leaders aren't familiar with demand generation, yet it is required to make lead generation effective. In episode 414 with John Sweeney.
We're partners with HubSpot, so we do a lot of our demand gen on HubSpot. And so person to person, you get to know that somebody does HubSpot, somebody's known for podcasts. You really get to know what their likes and dislikes are. And, that's just what we see from the data is it's still very much person to person. And there's ways to do one to many, and there's ways to get in front of more people at a time with webinars, training, podcasts, things like that. But a lot of those deals come back to the relationship. So all the other marketing for us, when we look at all the other types of marketing, we look at how do they support the relationship building and how are we using marketing to provide value, not ask for somebody else's time. So we really want to give before we ask in this model.
Talking with the Experts.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org. Do you love your podcast and dislike the editing and uploading to the various platforms? Would you like to spend this time with your family and friends or work on your business? Podcast editing doesn't have to be a chore. Talking with the Experts partners with podcasters who need help with audio and content editing. If you'd like to know more, contact me, Rose Davidson, using the link showing now or send me a private message. Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Josh Sweeney, and we're going to be discussing how to scale revenue with demand generation. Now, without demand generation, lead generation fails, and most business leaders aren't familiar with the term demand generation, yet it is required to make lead generation effective. Josh is a seasoned entrepreneur whose relentless drive has given him the platform to build big ideas and even bigger companies. One of his successes at Core Systems was acquired in 2016 by a leading partner in the CRM industry. Experiencing the impact of various sales and marketing challenges over the years, Josh founded Founder Scale. He has made it his mission to help founder-led organizations increase their sales. Because of his passion for growth and his passion for forward thinking, he donates his time to the Entrepreneur Organization of Atlanta in America, guiding and promoting other entrepreneurs through experience sharing and camaraderie. Josh, welcome to the podcast and thank you so much for giving up your time today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me, how does your Founder Scale actually work?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, we focus mainly on demand generation, but what that means for Founder Scale is, and our bigger goal is to help founder-led companies go from founder revenue to scalable revenue. So what we find in working mainly with B2B service companies is, founders close most of the deals. And it's a really big leap. And even though everybody tells them they should do it, it's a big leap to jump from closing all the deals from networking to closing all your deals through building a sales and marketing team. So what we do is we actually use demand generation in order to scale what that founder's already done naturally. So how do you scale relationship building and then slowly transition that to other people over time? So most people don't know quite how hard it is to go from the founder generating majority of revenue to a sales and marketing team. And there's just a lot of steps that can go in between to make that journey much easier.
Yeah, what is demand generation? I mean, you're right. I've not heard of it until today. So, what does it mean? What does it do? And how do people go from being founders to scaling up their business?
Yeah, so I start off talking a little bit about lead generation because most people have heard of that, right? Somebody comes to the founder and says, "You're ready to scale up?" You do lead generation, right? You're going to hire some company and they're going to go reach out to a bunch of people that you've never met, and they're going to talk them into getting on a meeting, and you're going to close a deal and it's going to be great, right? And that's normally the story that you hear, whether it's pay-per-click or meeting setters or whatever it is, right? There's all kinds of strategies for lead generation. And what we found is that does work for some companies, but most of the time it only works if they have an engaged audience already. They already had a marketing team staying in front of those people. So lead generation works better when people are a little bit more warm, right? They know of your brand, they've engaged with you. So we say that lead generation's goal is to convert and close. But before that, you need to engage and educate, right? You need all those warm people that know of your brand, have engaged with you. And so for us, demand generation, the goal is to engage and educate. And so that's really using marketing to go out and stay in front of your audience, just like podcasts, right? Podcasts are a great way to engage and educate. And when people listen or attend a podcast or are interviewed, right, that's part of the first step of the building of the relationship to engage and educate. So demand generation is a marketing strategy for us that we use to engage and educate so that when somebody's ready to buy, they think of your brand because you stayed in front of them, you helped them, and you were there for them. So that's kind of the difference between lead generation and demand generation.
So it's like getting them in the top end of the funnel, basically.
Very much so, but some people don't realize that lead generation is not the top of the funnel, right? So if you look at a funnel, like in our graphics, there's engage and educate, demand gen is at the top of the funnel. And then lead generation is after demand generation at a further point in the funnel. So very much top of funnel.
So how do we get those? I mean, other than podcasts and, how do we get people to in this demand generation platform, or not really a platform, but how do we get them into the top of the funnel using the demand generation?
Yeah. So what we do is we like to we call it a reason to engage. And so what we say is like, do you really want a sales rep reaching out to somebody with providing no value, never meeting that prospect and asking them for their time, right? We don't even respond to that as entrepreneurs and as business leaders, but then we think we can go hire somebody to do that for some reason, right? So what we do is we say, how do we give the company and how do we give your prospects a reason to engage with your brand? So what we would do is, for example, work like somebody with yourself and on a podcast for a brand. Inviting them in is a reason to engage, just like we're doing here. A webinar or a workshop, a virtual workshop. I think we've converted some more of the training and workshops being more valuable than webinars these days, where they have something to fill in and they can walk away with something to work on in their business, like a worksheet. So webinars are good. We like to mix in-person and digital. So we find that, some people just want to go to a dinner and break bread with other people like them and network with others like them. And that's how a lot of business has always been done. So we look at podcasts, webinars, lunches and dinners with a presenter, usually where that company's hosting it and providing value. And all of those things give somebody a reason to engage with your brand. That's not, hey, I know you don't know me. Why don't you give me some of your time so I can try and sell you something, right? So that to us is demand generation, is giving people a reason to engage. And there's all kinds of other ways that you can provide people reasons to engage with your brand.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. And a lot of business people, marketers, even marketers aren't using the full gambit of available resources to them. They either just using posts on social media or reels or TikToks or whatever that they're using, and they're not really using everything that's available to them. I think they're not looking outside the square, perhaps.
Yeah, what we found interesting, I mean, most of our clients are like 2 to 20 million US. and $2 to $20 million US. And the lower you go on those that end, like the sub $5 and $10 million companies, especially in B2B services, what you will find, or what we found, is the majority of the time through the whole scaling, it was all really built through relationships. So a lot of people, I think the marketing industry likes to hype up all of the digital options, right? Because somebody else can post, somebody else can run an ad. But what we say is, look at how you got here already and scale that up. And most of the time, when you look at how a company got to 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 million, it was all through more relationships. It wasn't through more social posts. Now, I think those things are important, and they're important parts of the brand building, and they help with demand generation, but they're more of an overlay because people engage on different platforms. And so, when you really look at the under the covers, relationships are really still at the core of the majority of businesses, especially in the B2B space. And I think sometimes, at least for me, I've lost sight of that, right? And I've gone and spent a lot of money trying other things. And then, I have a breakfast meeting and get a new deal. And I'm like, yeah, relationship again. That's what did it,
Yeah. I think it's important you have to build those relationships before people will buy from you, as a business owner. And I think we're all pretty savvy with that sort of thing. But, person to person, I know it has been difficult over the last couple of years, but, we should be getting more into, more person to person collaborations, networking, use whatever word that you wish. But I think that building a relationship in a person to person is more valuable, I think.
Yeah. It seems to be for me because, when we go out, we're partners with HubSpot. So we do a lot of our demand gen on HubSpot. And so person to person, you get to know that somebody does HubSpot, somebody's known for podcasts. You really get to know what their likes and dislikes are. And, that's just what we see from the data is it's still very much person to person. And there's ways to do one to many, and there's ways to get in front of more people at a time with webinars, training, podcasts, things like that. But a lot of those deals come back to the relationship. So all the other marketing for us, when we look at all the other types of marketing, we look at how do they support the relationship building, and how are we using marketing to provide value, not ask for somebody else's time. So we really want to give before we ask in this model. So we still like, PPC and social and all those things, but it's really how do you provide value through those and know that lots of people are on different channels that you have to engage on.
Yeah. And I guess, using more engagement, getting people to, that like, trust factor, which, I hate that terminology, but it's very
so
true.
true.
It's an essential part of your marketing. And if you don't get people to know, like, and trust you, then, you obviously not going to be able to get them to buy from you.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, it's know, like, and trust. And we find, the bigger the deals, the more that has to be in place, right? So it's not as hard when it's, there's other ways that it's hard for sure, but it's different. It's a different sell if it's a B2C sell and an individual can pull out a credit card. It's very different from a $250,000 marketing deal. So that trust level, you have to get rid of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And a lot of that is trust and relationships.
Absolutely. And, you obviously work with, larger organizations, but what about the, ones just starting out? How can they build this demand?
Yeah. So the thing that we like to recommend is, when you're on the smaller side, is what are the steps you can do to scale your time? So if you're the founder, let's say you're a $250,000 annual revenue company, right? And it's still about relationships. So what can you do to scale up your time? Well, there's tools that can help you scale up relationships. There's ways that, like, for example, in HubSpot, you can have everybody in a list. You can get a free version and you can see the last activity date and know, like, I didn't follow up with this person in a while, right? So I can look and say, I haven't talked to Rose in more than 90 days. I need to reach out. So there's tools that help you maintain the relationships and stay in front of people, which one, as in our society, we meet a lot of people very fast with digital and events and everything. And then sometimes we move on. So there's tools to help scale up. I think we're seeing a lot of like virtual assistants help, where it's like, don't hire a virtual assistant to do all the things, and try and train them. Just say, hey, you're coming on to help me manage my relationships and stay in touch more. Right. So how do I remember to send the gift? How do I remember to send the follow-up after a meeting? Making sure that they're helping me with the relationship, not trying to do everything. So there's lots of little incremental ways that we look at and say, how can that founder scale their time with a focus on relationship building? And that's really, the early genesis of what we do for our larger companies. We just, it's on a larger scale.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. It makes a lot of sense. And I was using HubSpot for a while, but I wasn't as proactive with it as I could have been. I had heaps of people in it, but if you're not proactive, it's really just a waste of their space and your time if you're not doing whatever it is that you're meant to be doing. And so I gave it up.
Yeah, and that's one thing we see a lot, right? When you're a founder and you're the only one in it, right? You have other people on your team, but you're the only one that needs to use it because you're doing the founder revenue, right? It's all coming from you. That's a lot of extra work. But what we see is kind of the starting point for it is when you do get that first VA or executive assistant or virtual assistant. Well, now they need to know that you're following up and people need to be in a list, and you start having them work from HubSpot, right? Or the CRM. So at the first point in which you need to collaborate on relationship building and deals, those tools become a lot more important. But before that, they're not. It's just not enough value unless you really want to be super diligent about it, and we recommend people do it. But yeah, that's a tall order for somebody trying to scale their company to do that extra effort. But I think once you add that one person that's on the sales and marketing side helping you, there has to be a tool to collaborate where you can easily say, hey, like I have people come in and, maybe it's somebody who does podcasts, and I'm like, hey, add them to our list of potential partners. Right. And so I can just work with my VA and say, add them to a partner list. And then I can go back and review that and I know where they are. So there's some organization level to it and recall that helps. So yeah, I think there's different inflection points for all tools and services as a business, right? As you scale up, there's some that, don't fit at certain sizes.
Absolutely. And I've yet to come across any sort of software that's a one size fits all.
Right. That wouldn't work, right? It's like, I kind of want like a Ferrari that does off-road, right? Like it,
Absolutely.
There's certain things that just doesn't work that way.
Josh, where can people find you if they want to work with you or indeed want to learn more about demand marketing?
Sure. So you can go to founderscale.com and click the contact form and submit a form and just ask for me. I am Josh Sweeney on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty easy to find there if you're looking for me on there.
Perfect. And what wise words of wisdom would you like to share?
Wise words of wisdom. At the end of the day, sales and marketing is all about relationships.
Yeah, short and sweet and to the point, and that's exactly what it is. It's all about building that relationship with client or customer, however you want to look at it. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing with me today. Your wisdom on demand marketing. It's been an eye opener. Yeah,
well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, the time.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.